Know that the ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. Know that the ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. Then we hustle, what's the night? Boys by my seat, boy. Know that the ride or die. My name came up a lot of sounds.
So yeah, I guess here we are. First episode of Space Pirate Radio. So yeah, I guess this is our podcast. I'm Damien Condon, and joined here with Michael, my brother, and yeah, we're the guys behind Space Pirate and the Hot Valley Nights web series. I guess we're just here today to talk a bit about like the fairly long road that it's taken to get to the point of releasing this web series set in Brisbane's Fortitude Valley, which is kind of infamous part of town for a long time now, and a part of town that we've had a lot to do with over the years. And Michael, you were just saying it had kind of been born out of some client work. We have a digital marketing agency, and we were trying to. Well, it was two things, right? We had aspirations of doing our own stuff, and you'd been studying at Afters, but then we were also trying to pitch like what we thought was like really kind of like cutting edge kind of content, serialized content to clients, and and nobody would do it with us.
Yeah. So like I was thinking about it before because it was such a long time. It was such a long time ago now. But you know, we had been pitching that idea of serialized content to clients, and it was something which was gaining in popularity particularly over in the States. I think the first idea was originally around that. What was it? It was like HP or something. It was like some computer.
Yeah, it was HP. It was the computer. They had the aliens that were hipster mustaches that were taking over people's brains.
Yeah. So that was kind of part of the start of it all, wasn't it? I mean, Hot Valley Nights is obviously nothing like that campaign, but the idea was to have a serialized comedy series that promoted our client. And and we'd done that first little vignette, which was with a local like fairly well-known Brisbane actor or personality, and he'd been abducted or something, and there was like a kind of like a hitman or something like along the lines of that, and then you know that was pretty popular on social media, and then we decided to create this huge sprawling like version of the valley with all of these different things, like, you know, elements to it, right? Like the dodgy cops or the drug dealers, the hipsters, hospo people, like just the whole, you know,
real estate developers.
Real estate developers, like just all those different people who lived in the valley, right?
Yeah.
And and it was almost up, right? Like it'd basically been greenlit by a client, and then it got axed right at the last minute, and that was the end. That was the end of it, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Like with most of our you know, a little bit more ambitious or creative client you know, campaigns that we were pitching, right? So it was sort of dormant for a while, and then we just decided just to do the whole thing with our clients and just go all out, right? Like that was pretty much it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we were talking about it in your apartment in the valley at that point in time, and we decided to do it. We knew, or you knew that you wanted to make original content, with the ultimate aim being like a feature film. But we thought this was a way. We thought this was a way that we could do something that was just our own thing with no client interference, and B, it might be kind of a stepping stone on the road to writing and producing and directing a feature sort of thing. And yeah, and then we just decided to do it, and we got in and got a bunch of people around us and just did this full like comedy half hour, television half hour comedy pilot, bringing in all of those different things into the show. And just things we thought were pretty universal for inner city dwellers, regardless of where they were, like agency people and hospitality entrepreneurs, all sorts of different entrepreneurs, shared space entrepreneurs, startup people, like all those kind of tropes of the inner city that we'd encountered and we figured would be pretty universally identified with, regardless of whether people were in Brisbane or not. But if they were in Brisbane, then regardless even of what age they were, they would have had a valley. Everyone has a valley experience or a valley story, and they can be good or bad depending on
or both in the space of a night.
It could be all those things in the space of a night.
That's right. Like it is supposed to be that universal idea of inner city living, and a place which has been gentrified, and then that idea of the sort of urban entrepreneur, and but there's a whole sort of range of different people that just kind of intersect in these sorts of places, right?
Yeah.
But like somebody, I remember talking to one of my friends who was from Sydney, and I was trying to explain what the valley was, or what the valley was like, and and I knew Sydney. I'd been studying down here, and I live here now. But I was trying to explain it to this friend of mine, and I was saying, well, it's kind of like Darlinghurst, but it's kind of across with King's Cross, but it's also sort of Surrey Hills or something like that. And I'm explaining stuff to somebody who's from Sydney, but if you're in some other city, like you've probably got some inner city suburb that where there's all these, there's gentrification, but it's still a bit grimy, but there's lots of hipsters, and there's all these other, and there's the cops, and people go out there and all that sort of thing. But so everyone kind of knows a place like this, but if you were to explain the valley, how would you explain the valley?
So I guess it's been different things at different times. When I was going out there, it was like the nightclub and live music kind of district. It's been the red light district. There used to be like illegal casinos there. I mean, it's this part of town which essentially is like is like maybe 2 or 3 blocks wide. It's right next door to the city, and it's increasingly become like heaps and heaps of apartments, lots of nightclubs, lots of places to eat out. But it's still kind of like it's where all parts of society kind of mixed together. Like everybody's kind of everybody from every different part of the city kind of mixes there at some point or other.
And geographically, the way that Brisbane's set up, it actually everything does intersect like that, either in the city or in the valley.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's. I mean, I think. Yeah, people I've heard people try and compare it. Maybe I think it's like the Flatiron district maybe it's in San Francisco. Yeah, but it's kind of its own. It's kind of its own unique thing, but the cool part of it is that whether you're 60 or like 26. If you're from Brisbane, then you'll have been in the valley, and you'll it's just where lots of things happen. There's lots of money to be made, and there's also like lots of loose kind of behaviour occurring, and yeah, it's got all that inner city stuff. It's not the city, like it's not where the bankers and stuff go. It's where the kids go to play, and then there's also all these other kind of unsavory characters, whether they're making their money legally or illegally or a mixture of both.
I was there's a whole ensemble cast, right? And the whole idea of the show was always to be a bit like it's a show. It's a bit Simpsons-esque in a way, like whereby you've got like Simpsons has Springfield, whereby you basically
just a second.
So like Simpsons has got Springfield, and it just builds out this world, right, which never sort of ever ends. And that was kind of the idea with Hot Valley Nights. We've got this core kind of group of characters, which were in the pilot, which we then, and I mean, that's a whole other story, but what was created as a pilot, which we then cut up to turn into a web series. But it was always, the idea was that you just have this world of all of these different characters, and you could keep on sort of adding characters to the whole world. But I was thinking about, it was such a long time ago when we were actually creating that core group of characters, and I was just sort of thinking back to where they all came from, and the core of each of these characters. So obviously we've got John Burrows, who is the the downtrodden agency guy that gets fired at the start. His Denny Young, who's his old school friend, who's a psychopathic entrepreneur. You've got Zoe Brooks, who's in the bonus episodes now, who we will actually be releasing her episode later on, who's sort of a fashionista type character, owns a boutique shop, which I always imagine is on James Street. I mean, we shot it on James Street. At Moulton, the old Moulton store, our friend Jesse's shop. And Ray Coburn, or Cockburn, however it's pronounced, the real estate developer. I mean, those are really our core characters. I mean, of course, and Frick. I should mention Frick, Frick Van der Westhausen, the South African drug dealer. Slash psychologist, or
bedroom philosopher.
But kind of role. but I was thinking back to the core of all those different characters. Hey, I mean, and they're essentially just like an amalgam of different people we know or types of people we've met, right?
Yep.
Years.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, because it's hard to think back now, because what was it like? Was it 5 years ago? 4 years?
A while ago now, yeah.
A while ago. And then there was the time between like the idea and then actually getting to shooting. And then then we shot the thing, and and then it all came together. But I guess we were trying to tie as many of those different kind of archetypes, or whatever you want to call those different lead characters into the pilot as possible, and then they could go out and take on lives of their own in a number of different ways, depending on what would happen if we were able to sell it and get it up as a series sort of thing through the traditional channels, which I guess kind of is where Space Pirate sort of starts to come into the equation. I mean, Space Pirate was, the idea was of it came before Hot Valley Nights even, and that was to have our own production house as a completely separate idea to the agency, to the digital advertising agency. So it was the vehicle to bring Space Pirate into the world, as well as being a shot at having something that we could show people other than client work or just ideas on a page.
Yeah. I mean, again, Space Pirate, like, I was resurrecting all of the social media and everything for the launch of Hot Valley Nights, just because it's been lying dormant for a while. And I mean, Twitter's been around for ages now.
Yeah, right.
I can't even remember what year it started, but like that just goes to show how long, like the agency is about.
Just a second. Well, like I remember the like really early discussions where we thought like something like trying to build something like Ghostly, but for film and television. Where Ghostly kind of, I mean, there's this distinct kind of flavor about everything that they do. For those that don't know, that sort of if you're putting it at its most basic, it's like an independent music label out of Detroit, but it's really become this. They do artistic collaborations and all sorts of different things. There's merchandise and there's artwork, visual art, and all of that sort of stuff, as well as the artists and the music that they bring into the world. But everything has everything is distinctly Ghostly, and that's kind of like, I think that was kind of where it came from, and just that kind of indie, punk rock kind of ethos.
Yeah, and that's I really see that as being the future for Space Pirate, right? So it's kind of evolved in all these different ways in our head, but now it's effectively launched with Hot Valley Nights out, as a web series now. But like I've always, I mean, both you and I have looked at a lot of those interesting models in music, right? So whereby, you've got a label but these labels do more than just make music. Ghostly's a really good example where they do art exhibitions, and there's a lot of visual arts and that sort of element to it, as well as the music. But then you've got other you know, companies like it's just escaping me now. The Adult Swim,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
Adult Swim was essentially like, you know, cable,
Yeah.
you know, entertainment comedy, that then went on to do all this other stuff, like have a, you know, music label, and
That's right.
again have these sort of collaborations that sort of cross over between different disciplines and things like that. I still think that that's, you know, that's something that Space Pirate could do. But I mean, in the first instance, you know, now that we've got our first the first show out in the world, created the YouTube channel, which is, you know, it's only been around for 3 or 4 weeks now. But I really see that as being, at least for now, the home of Space Pirate, but it could branch out into all these other kind of realms and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, now that we've got this thing out, and there's plans to do more in terms of shows, in terms of Hot Valley Nights, but in terms of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then in terms of other types of content on the YouTube channel. But also, like, I see these places, like, I think Ghostly is a good example. Adult Swim's a good example, because they're kind of places where people are brought in, you know. A music label is a really good example, because you can bring in all these different artists who kind of basically fit within the identity of a label, but they're all doing their own thing, you know. And I really see that is the future for Space Pirate. Like, if you could have a production house that's producing entertainment, which is in its mindset is more like a music label, and has more of that kind of DIY indie vibe, but still has the aspirations to do really, you know, top level stuff. I just think that's the space that we want to be in. You know, that's where we want to play.
Yeah, and hopefully other people will come in and kind of join that family, and it's a vehicle for getting their stuff out into the world as well. And just again, like, just not having any kind of like real restrictions placed around like what it is or format or what the idea is, or it having to fit into like any kind of pigeonhole, other than it having that certain kind of sensibility about it, I guess, was
yeah. And so, I mean, doing Hot Valley Nights was a really good doing the pilot for Hot Valley Nights was, I think, a really good kind of launch pad for what Space Pirate is, right? So, because in doing it, and just because it's an ensemble piece, you have to bring in so many, you know, people into the fold to kind of make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, comedians, improv people, actors. So going through the process of making Hot Valley Nights, right, as a first project, and the fact that it was an ensemble piece, and we had to bring in all these people into the fold, was a really good way to start Space Pirate, right? Because, I mean, we brought in, you know, we had a lot of different actors, local actors, comedians, you know, improv people, other filmmakers, and then all of the crew and just everybody who volunteered. So, but basically, by going through the process of making Hot Valley Nights, we kind of, you know, collected all of these people who sort of thought in a similar way to us, right?
Yeah,
and those guys and all of those, whether they're actors or other, you know, writers or directors, or kind of a combination of both, or all of those things. Like, a lot of those people are off actually doing their own stuff right now, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you've got like Kevin Spink, who's gone and done a couple of short films since then.
Yep, and he's developing TV show at the moment. Had Ollie, who was one of our gym, 24-hour gym hipsters who gets murdered in the pilot. Then has gone on to make a couple of shorts. One short, which is, I mean, it's essentially like the Hot Valley Nights pilot in a way. It's 20 something minutes. It's the TV half hour. What could be a pilot almost.
Yeah,
that went on to win a bunch of awards overseas in the States at festivals.
Yeah.
And then of course, those are their own pro. Look, Dusty, like Dusty, who played Frick, who's now got a comedy circus that he's touring.
Yeah.
Touring. I mean, it's alive in Brisbane itself, but he's going to tour it, right?
Yeah, it's in Brisbane, or it's been in Brisbane. It started at Miami Marquetta on the Gold Coast, and it's kind of this weird hybrid circus freak show vaudevillian sort of thing. And he's really talented visual artist as well. So there's all these kind of like visual, like digital visual effects, like within that environment of like wherever the show is playing. Yeah, he did it in Brisbane as well. Yeah, but he plans on touring this thing as well. So it's happening like really quite frequently now. And yeah, it's again him just dreaming it up and making all of the stuff happen himself. Yeah. He's again collected a variety of different people who are really talented comedians, but again are not what you would necessarily expect from the local stand-up scene or whatever. They're all there's all this kind of, I don't know, weirdness that comes along with it, which is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that was him being frustrated with not being able to do what he wanted to do in the format that he wanted to do it because it just didn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's awesome, isn't it? Because like you have to have an entrepreneurial kind of spirit, right? Like in Australia, for people overseas, in Australia, we're lucky in that we get subsidised, or there's government grants and government bodies set up to help people make films and get into TV and stuff like that. But then on the flip side of that, I think people aren't entrepreneurial in their approach to filmmaking or to TV or sometimes in the arts in general. Whereas I see what people are doing over in the States, where they've, it's all entrepreneurial. Like if you want to get something up, you have to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And I really like that whole mindset, and that's obviously how we think, and obviously being business owners and entrepreneurs ourselves anyway, you just have that mindset. But like you see all these other people around, like Dusty and Ollie and Kevin and everyone else who have that similar sort of mindset. But for Dusty to go and create his own like circus, like I love that, like he's gone out and got, this is the old vaudevillian kind of tradition.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to get back to that too as a filmmaker, right? Like what was filmmaking back in the old days? Like it was someone who'd shot something, had their projector, and would take it traveling to different towns, and would show it and sell tickets as a show, and people would go and watch it, right? Like,
yeah,
so
that's true.
like I think I think you have to have a bit of that sort of vaudevillian kind of spirit in a way. But but obviously we're lucky these days with the digital world, where you can kind of take it to people.
Yeah.
Dusty's doing it old school, that's for sure.
Yeah. But again, like when I was talking to him, he was frustrated by being separated from the audience by the work, like the typical stand-up format and how stand-up works. And I mean, the scene's not huge here like it is in the States, where you've got like massive scenes in LA and New York and Chicago, and like, all over the place. We just don't have the people for it, the population for it. But yeah, and I guess that again is kind of like, with Kevin and Ollie as well, it's just sort of like you want to remove any barrier to entry. And I guess that's what YouTube is for us, right? We should also be honest, or come clean, or whatever you want to call it, about like how long this has taken to get to this point, because we try to do it using the typical process, right? Where we shot a pilot, and we shopped it around to different people, and ultimately just nobody was interested, or we didn't have the relationships or the network, or we were I don't even know how to describe it, and each no took a very long time to get to a definitive no, right? So we were just like, all right.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean,
let's.
Well, yeah, I mean that's right. Right. Like we were originally going to get it out on YouTube, and then found out that one of the the main SVODs, the video on demand, subscription based video on demand companies, whatever, in Australia wouldn't accept things that were on YouTube, whereas Netflix does.
Yeah.
So we decided to take it to them, or not put it up on YouTube first. But then you don't have a proof of concept in a way with the audience, right? Because you don't have an audience. You've just got something which is a proof of concept. And then you're just doing the same old thing, where you're taking it to a gatekeeper, maybe one person who likes it or doesn't like it. Whereas what you can do with YouTube is build your own audience. Have your audience, show that you have it, so show that it's it has an audience, or has reached an audience, and is resonating with people, and also has a in risk mitigator in a way, because it has its own audience, so that when you're then taking it to people and pitching it to them, they know that it's less risky to get this thing up, because you'll be bringing your audience with you. But because we knew that we couldn't do that, in this particular instance, we then went through the old route, which was to get it in front of people and to pitch it, and it just took such a long time to get a no.
Yeah.
That it would have just been, in retrospect, probably better off just getting it up on YouTube in the first instance, and not wasting all of that time.
It would have definitely been better.
Yeah, it would have definitely been better to do that. So we're back to plan A.
It became like this huge thing in our minds, and then I think we were just scared to
get it out there,
because it was like it had just been a thing, like a thing out there for so long that we never I don't know, it just became the wheels kept spinning, and we always found something else to do.
It's just
before.
lost all momentum, and but it's you have to finish that part of the process, right? When you make something, it has to find an audience. Otherwise, like, the contract isn't complete in a way,
Yeah. So I think that was the thing, though, was like, I think we were right in that we knew that we were outsiders anyway, and we knew that it was a long shot anyway. So I think gut instinct was right. It was like, just get it out there, get it onto YouTube, and see if people or wherever, and see if people are into it. And if they're into it, they're into it. And if they're not, then learn from all of the cool things that we did learn, and then go and make the next thing, whatever that might be, which is where we are now.
That's an important point. Like, I was thinking about this before, and so for you, what were the big learnings out of the whole process?
Oh man.
Dreamy.
Chasing. Is he dreaming?
Chasing. Probably barking at the mailman or something.
The big learnings. Well, I mean, I was like a complete newbie when it came to, all the stuff that goes into pre-production, all that sort of stuff. And so there was just that kind of hands-on learning. I really enjoyed the feeling of having that bunch of people around you, and making something for yourself, rather than it being, for somebody else, or to promote something, or whatever it might have been. I think that at heart is kind of why I wrote and started my career out as a print journalist, was because I liked making something. And the other learnings were, again, just coming back to what we were talking about just then, which is probably just we probably knew what we had to do in the first instance. And I'm glad that I've probably learned how part of the process of pitching, or at least getting something in for submission, as far as whether it's video on demand or broadcast is concerned. It was, I guess, interesting, and maybe we needed to learn about that as well. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's the big learning for me was if you want to do it, then you can do it, and if you want to get it out there, then you can get it out there, and you don't have to stop and ask permission. And I think that's something you get very used to when you're doing client work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of big learnings. I mean, I think that trust your gut is definitely the big one. I mean, that's something that we've learned over different areas, but definitely trust your gut. Creatively too, when you make something, when you show it to people, everybody thinks that they're supposed to give their their opinion straight away, and that's fine and everything, but ultimately, if you get if you get so many different, like, you have to be able to filter opinions, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've become much better at filtering opinions, whereby because on the one hand, you have to be really open to feedback from different people or different ideas and things like that. But then by the same token, you have to understand what you're trying to do, and you have to know, when an opinion is something which you need to take on board or not.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're, particularly going through the post-production process, you can get, and because I was editing it as well, you kind of become like numb to what you're doing. You get too close to what you're doing, so sometimes you can't. You're not. Your objectivity has kind of gone out the window, right? So that makes it even more difficult when you're trying to figure stuff out. But I think, again, just it goes back to being able to sort of, just trust get those sort of gut feelings and go with them a lot of the time.
Yeah. And movement and momentum.
Momentum, absolutely. Yeah. Momentum is everything. Speed and momentum is just crucial.
And that's why we're doing so we're doing this now, and like why we're hoping that other people will come along, right?
Yeah. Well, this thing that was totally dormant, suddenly everybody was getting back in contact with us, and a lot of the main people involved were very energetic and keen to do more.
Yeah.
And the more I think about things, like the main commodity, right? Like it's from, you gain so much energy from other people. And when you've got a project and it kind of goes in the drawer, or you're just sort of plodding through the post-production or whatever, you do lose that. And it's like, as soon as you can get together with that group of people and then just be exchanging ideas and just talking about kind of what you want to do, and then acting upon them, everything just snowballs, really.
Yeah, and that's probably a good point. A good point to bring us around to what ideally this series of podcasts is going to be about, which is talking to some of those people that we've mentioned already, and talking to them about what it is that they've been doing, and like the group of people that they've brought together, and to make whatever it is that they're making, and just to give some insight into what it is that drives them, and how they've kind of done what they've done, within that kind of like what's kind of a super indie kind of scale of the of the creative process.
Yeah, that's right. And that concept of craft too, I think. I think that sometimes we can kind of get caught up. Like I'm really interested in how technology and film kind of intersect, and how everything kind of enables us to, like, the indie scene these days is so much easier than it would have been back in like the 80s.
Yeah.
when you had to like get some 16mm film, and maybe you were shooting on video, but you probably weren't.
Yeah.
You have to be shooting on VHS or something. You would have been shooting on Super 16 or something like that. Like, it's so much easier for you to make stuff now and get it out.
Yeah.
but by the same token, it's just still everything's just the same as it always was, right? It's about making stuff and the craft that goes into that. And again, working with people throughout this, like some of the development that we did, you know, it was like with Brad Einstein from New York, like talking about all of that. Like his the way that he approached craft coming from the New York improv scene.
Yeah, it'd be good to get back in contact with him and talk to him about that.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna get Brad on as well, I think. You know, but when you like you know, like stand-up comedian, like that comedy, that's such a craft in itself. And then obviously everything that goes into making comedy or drama, writing and then the acting and the directing, the performance side of things as well. It is everything, you know, but that's right. That's kind of what we'll be doing. We'll be talking to a whole range of interesting people, and you know, I really want to make the channel a kind of a rallying point for other filmmakers or people who are just interested in this sort of stuff, whether they're filmmakers or not. But yeah, I sort of want to make it a place for people to kind of connect and build a community around that kind of like DIY punk kind of, you know, get back to that side of things in terms of filmmaking. So yeah.
And I think it's sort of and then like hopefully Space Pirate can become a platform where we know that we can already reach people at scale. Coming in on 200,000 views for the channel after, what is it, 4 weeks now that it's been live. And that's the awesome thing is like is that we can do that if we want to do that. So yeah, and I think it'd be good to talk to people also about, you know, how they reach and build an audience or community or whatever it is that, you know, that their ultimate aim is to do, or who they're ultimately aiming to talk to. And I guess it'll be different for different projects and different people. So yeah, hopefully, well, we'll learn more as we do more of these. And if people are interested, they can subscribe and like and share the videos, and we'll get it out there on podcast platforms as well, I reckon. And yeah, just learn more as we go from these interesting people.
Yeah, and drop us a line too. We'd love to hear from anyone who's got some great project going on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate. Well, on that note, we might close this one out, and we'll see who comes along next. Out of the people that, you know, that are part of our community and that are doing those interesting things that we've touched on, or other ones that we haven't. So yeah. Cool. All righty. Thanks, heaps, mate. Cheers, mate. Yeah.
Know that the ride or die. I keep waiting by my seat. Know that the ride or die. I keep waiting by my seat. We hustle, what's the night? Waiting by my seat. Know that the ride or die. My name came up a lot, it sounds more when I was not around. Certain people that